What's up, guys? We got a good one for you today. So let's talk
Let's go.
about the whole buzz about 50-year mortgages. Is it a smart strategy or a long-term trap? Would you stretch out your mortgage for 50 years if it meant that your payment was going to be lower today? Or what? Well, not or, but even if it costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars to do so. So we're gonna jump right in. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about whether or not this is going to be effective in today's market, if it's going to help buyers, if it's going to help investors. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. So let's start off by talking about LaShawn. First of all, what is a 50-year mortgage? What is that specifically?
So great question, and I love this topic. Thank you, Wilma, for suggesting us to do this because I feel like we definitely need to be educated in this space. When we talk about a 50-year mortgage, it's the term of that loan, right? As with anything. So currently, the current mortgage terms are 10, 15, 20. Sometimes there's a 25-year and there's a 30-year mortgage. But what they're proposing is now adapting to a 50-year mortgage where you can stretch out that term another 20 years. So that's in essence what it is. However, the longer the payment is because you're stretching it out over 50 years versus right now, what is traditionally the 30-year mortgage, your payment will ultimately be cheaper. I think that this was, definitely introduced because we all know, we all can feel it, we can see it. Affordability is a huge, huge issue across the US. And so I guess the theory is if we stretch the term out, it can help lower the payment, which will quote unquote make things affordable. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So just your initial thoughts when you saw the headlines, blasting on CNN, maybe some of the commentary on social media about 50-year mortgage, what was your initial thought?
I was like, ooh, like let me think about that. Right? Like that's initially that's my thought. Let me first say this. It's not the first time I've heard a longer term, longer than 30 years. I think I might have heard a 40-year term at
Mhm,
from it's a gentleman I listen to. I think his name is Brian Hope.
mhm,
And I think he mentioned it one time on I watched some of his podcasts. I was like, oh man, that could be creative. To make home ownership in this current market more affordable. And yeah, naturally I was like, man, that's just new. But then when I actually started like doing some research on it and really trying to figure out like, okay, what's the pros and cons behind this thing? Like, what's the negatives? What's the positives?
mhm.
And I was like, man, this could be interesting. I think I'm at this point, I'm not all the way one side or the other side, but I am interested in the details when it comes to the 50-year mortgage. So yeah.
That's good. That's good. So me, my stance on it, I am against it. I am totally against
Mm,
it. Just because from a lending perspective, um, in our world, when a person does a longer term mortgage, it's a higher risk to a lender. So if
mm,
someone needs to carry a mortgage for an additional 20 years, that is risky for a lender. And
mm,
so in the lending world, when you hear the term risk, know that on the consumer side, the buyer side, that means more cost to the buyer. The lender
Mm-hmm.
is going to push that cost to the buyer because it's more risky for us to lend you money. And
mm,
so, what does that look like? Higher interest rate. What does that look like? Higher fees. What
mhm,
does that look like? A higher interest that you're paying over the life of the loan. So that's
mm,
amortization. In my opinion, this is borderline predatory lending, just because
mm,
when you're getting trapped into, if you think about if anyone ever takes the time to really look at their mortgage, especially when they first get it, that's the reason why you may hear these things like, oh, you should make an extra mortgage payment a year. Why do they say that? Right?
mhm.
To cut down on the what? Interest that you're
Interest.
Right,
paying.
right.
Because when you make that mortgage payment in the very beginning, almost 80% of your payment is going to interest. You ain't
Mm-hmm.
even touching your principal. So
Right.
if you go and stretch this out over 50 years, when will you ever touch the principal of that loan?
Mm.
It
Right.
will take you, what, 10, 15 years to do so. And the purpose of real estate, in my opinion, is to build wealth, to have
Yeah.
access to equity. If you're never truly paying off your loan, when you go to sell this house, try to refinance this house, you don't really have as much equity, which is quote unquote cash value to the consumer to do
Mhm.
it. So right now, unless they structure this a little differently, I am against it. I don't like it. What do you
Yeah.
think,
No, I mean,
Gavin?
I'm in the same boat, but I also kind of look at it from multiple perspectives. I also think about it from the perspective of the investors. So like ourselves, we own other properties, and I was thinking like, man, yeah, I know the whole it's going to cost more over time, but what if I could reduce my cost today and increase my cash flow by still charging the same, rent or whatever to, my well, my with his finger, and still charge. Man, that's going to be huge for me, especially if and it works if you're investing for the long term. Now, if you're looking to, purchase and flip something, again, that's not for that game, but for the game of long-term rentals, holding investment properties for, for long terms to produce a a constant cash flow from receiving rent, then man, this could be a game changer for those who are savvy enough, for those investors, and you don't even have to be savvy enough, but an investor gets a 50-year mortgage, it cuts his payment in half,
Mhm.
uh, but
I mean,
still
now
receiving
you're
cash
talking my
flow.
language.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it's gonna work for the few, but not the many. And because there are fewer necessarily investors than they are
Woman, I am looking at your face like
primary
you just like
homeowners.
waiting to get in there.
Oh man, like I think my palms are sweaty right now. Right, 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 right. So I hear you guys, and I'm not disagreeing at all with what you're saying at all. But I feel like we need to pull this onion back a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. This might be the first episode to another one because I feel like there's some things I think we need to unpack here. There's a lot of unknowns, but let's just say for me to be devil's advocate on this one, okay? All right. I heard both sides. I've heard, oh, it's a 50-year trap, right? I've heard it's you're pretty much renting for 50 years, right? I've
Mm.
heard that. I heard that. But I think about it like this too. I'm wondering when the 15-year mortgage came out and the 30-year
Mhm.
mortgage came out,
Yeah,
were we still saying the same stuff when those
correct. You're
came
right.
out? You
Mhm.
know, I'm pretty sure when those came out, people were like, "Oh my God, you about to be put in handcuffs for 30 years." You know, but now we have a 50-year that came out to what try to make homes more affordable. I know people say, "Well, you're not really making it more affordable." Well, the monthly payment will be cheaper. Okay,
Mhm.
and I do feel like I do believe we are buying assets when you're buying a home. You know, so I mean, we don't think about that when we're getting student loans and we're paying on that student loan for 50 years. Um, so I'm just saying, it's a lot of stuff I think we still need to understand about it. But initially, I will say this: if you're trying to buy a home and you can't right now because it's hard to afford one because what? Hey, my income is not going up at according to interest rates and I mean inflation and everything.
Mhm.
And interest rates are still kind of staying steady at around 5 and 6% at the moment. What other ways can we make home buying more affordable? You know, for the masses of people. And I think this is a possible, like I won't say the ultimate solution, but
Mhm.
it will actually put more people in homes. I will say this too, and I don't want to take up all the time. All right. I think I've seen where it says it's positive for probably builders, lenders. I saw that argument, and I also saw it was positive for who? Your realtor, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
why? What's going to happen, Gavin? We know we like to talk about economics, right? Let's
Oh
go there
yeah,
for a little
yeah,
bit,
supply and demand. So
right? So all right, we make house payments cheaper, right? So what's going to happen? More people want to buy, right? More people want to
that's
buy
right.
houses, right? So what's going to happen? Prices are going to rise.
Mm-hmm.
Prices will rise because of that. So let's just be honest. Prices will rise. So if you're a home buyer and you buy a house today and you got a 50-year mortgage, some people were like, well, guess what? You probably, if you buy a $500,000 house, it's probably going to pay $1 million in interest or whatever. But if you keep that house for 10 years and housing prices go up and you decide to sell, hey, I'm pretty sure you will make a profit off of that deal. So I'm just going to leave that right there because I know we can go a little further into that. But
Right.
there's I think there's a lot of positives with this. Now, I will say this, and I do get that, man, you're gonna put yourself in a 50-year trap. But my thing is make it an option. Don't make it a requirement for someone to get a 50-year mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a 50-year, get a 50-year. If you want a 30-year, get a 30. If you can afford a 15-year, get a 15. That's
Right.
my thing.
Yeah,
You
you
know.
got you got some
Mhm.
valid points, and I totally agree. You know, from a affordability standpoint, right? Because the way I
Mhm.
look at it as everyone has their own definition of affordability. A lot
Right.
of people, because when you think about affordability, are you just saying affordability on a monthly basis or
Mhm.
affordability for a lifetime? Right? Because to me, those are two different perspectives. If I'm looking at my day in and day out, I'm trying to make ends meet today, then absolutely a 50-year mortgage will make sense because it keeps my monthly cost a lot lower based on what
Mhm.
I'm doing right now. But if I'm thinking about it from a long-term standpoint for like wealth build, you know, legacy, generational wealth, things like that, it's a slower build to equity because you stretch that term out so much, you're barely attacking the principal of the loan. So you have less to leave to your offsprings or, you know, the people that you plan on leaving this house to in the future, your spouse or whatever. So that's something to look at. But I think with anything, it has to be education, right? I think
Right.
people have to be financially literate enough to really understand the power of real estate, the power of a mortgage, how it's a tool, and how do
Right.
you properly leverage the tool so that you don't get trapped. Could use that word. Is it a 50-year trap? But you can use it as a stepping stone. Like maybe you get in a 50-year mortgage just to get in, but the goal is never to stay there. Is to better yourself to get out, not to stay. Because I think the people that stay and truly do get trapped in
Yeah.
that are the people that's going to suffer the most.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know we got a hard stop today, guys, but the hard we're going to talk more about this, but the hard part
Oh
is
man. I
getting out of
clearly
that
got you.
trap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting out of that trap. But we will continue this conversation next week. This is a good one. We got a
One
lot
I
to
more
love
deal
it.
with.
one
Go
more
ahead.
thing. One more thing. And then
Okay.
I'm gonna stop. Right, right. So because I love this. It's good. All right. So yeah, I forgot what else we do this with, right? So you know how like sometimes we're like, hey, if you're gonna do that 50-year, or even if you're gonna do the 30-year, right? Let's just say you can't afford to do the 15-year and you do
Mhm.
the 30-year, right? It's to your best interest to possibly reinvest that money that you're saving somewhere
Yeah.
else. What if someone took that same principle, right, and
Mhm.
said, hey, I can do the 15 if I wanted to do the 15. But I'm gonna do the 50 and I'm gonna take the money that I'm not spending on the 15 and I'm
Yeah.
gonna invest it in the stock market. I'm gonna invest it in something else to also compound my
Mhm.
investments. But I think we gotta look at this in a way that I believe we gotta look at this in a way that's not boxing us in, I
Right.
feel.
Right.
But
Yeah.
let me stop because I can go deeper, but I'm not gonna do that today because I got to go.
Part two.
But right.
So we thank you guys for tuning in this episode of Teach Me Tuesday. Sorry we did come on a little late. We had to end this a little abruptly, but please tune in next week, guys. We will definitely talk a little bit more about this part 2, and I'm gonna give a little cliffhanger because someone introduced to me. They're talking about something to call a portable mortgage. We're gonna talk about that too. Where you can take, if you got a 1% and 2% interest rate, how you can port that over to another mortgage. What is it? We're going to talk about that next time, guys. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.
Peace.